what I wanted to do when I got finished with The Sopranos was do a movie. And had a couple of ideas, and this was one of them. I never conceived this at all. I was trying to capture what a strange time it really was. It's not really in the movie, but yeah, especially toward the end of that era, it seemed like something major was happening every day. An assassination, an invasion, or something. This was constant. And I was interested in doing sort of the backwaters of that, not really focusing on the upstage stuff. But all that affected, even subliminally, a little town in New Jersey. I'd been around it, but I wasn't paying attention to it because I was a spoiled suburban kid. But I realized that was actually economic boom time. And to hear my parents tell it, you wouldn't think so. But that was really the case. And I began to realize that, and I tried to incorporate it the farther we went along. Human beings are always in that conflict about, I want to be part of something, I want to be babied, I want to be taken care of, and I also want to tell everybody to go fuck yourself, and I'm free, and I can do what I want, and I'm just my own person. That's the whole key to the movie. And one of the reasons I did the movie was because in The Sopranos, one of my favorite parts of that, or maybe my favorite part of that whole thing, was putting the picture and the sound together. And I wanted to continue that. I missed that once I was done. And I always have ideas for songs to put against picture, and so this is really just a compilation album of one of my favorite songs, is what it comes down to. But we had to work it out such that it would be logical, it was right chronologically, that the band could theoretically do it at their level of expertise, and that it would be a good song, and it could be recordable, and that these guys could do it as individuals with their voices and stuff like that. So in the 60s, the Roaring 20s were like 40 or 50 years ago. And that nowadays, as I think John said, kids and adults are both singing, to a certain extent, are familiar with the same music and still singing the same music and still playing the same music. But back in the 60s, nobody was playing my father's music. Nobody was singing Fody O'Dub. That died out. But the music from the 60s is still with us, very, very present. And that, to me, was an interesting factor. The music was, at that time, was a way into everything, at least for me, and for a lot of people that I knew too. It was a way, that's where I first learned about art and poetry, fashion, humor, film. It all came from there. Rock and roll was my first glimpse of like, oh, that's art. That's something maybe even I could do that. And it was in politics, it was by Rolling Stone was a magazine that was formed right as this movie is ending. And that was a rock and roll magazine, but it had everything in it. Everything was filtered through that lens. And I don't think that's the case anymore. And I was an okay drummer, but when we had this band, I never even bought a set of drums. I played on cardboard boxes and stuff. We never got out of the basement. Not for one. We never played one gig, paying or otherwise. No one ever saw us. We were way too good for that. And we were like a super group in our town, and kept it all locked up.